Here are the most feared pirates in history, ranked from scary to please just take the ship and go. I don't want any trouble. Now, before you picture someone in a Halloween costume with a plastic hook hand, let me be very clear. These were not fun guys. No buried treasure maps, no parrots giving life advice. These were people who looked at the concept of civilization and said, yeah, I don't think that's for me, and then set entire coastlines on fire. Let's get into it. Number 8. Samuel Bellamy. Samuel Bellamy went to sea to make enough money to marry the woman he loved. That's genuinely sweet. He came back as the wealthiest pirate who ever lived. That's considerably less sweet for everyone he robbed. Known as Black Sam, Bellamy captured over 50 ships in less than 2 years operating in the Atlantic. But what made him different wasn't just the body count, it was the attitude. He had this whole philosophy about it. When he captured a merchant captain who refused to join his crew, Bellamy went on a full rant about how the rich make laws to oppress the poor, and pirates are the only honest men on the sea. So he was basically a pirate with a podcast. He died young when his flagship, the Whydah, got caught in a violent storm off Cape Cod in 1717 and sank. And just to twist the knife a little, he was on his way back to the woman he loved when it happened. The ocean said no. Number 7. Henry Every. Henry Every pulled off the greatest pirate heist in history and then completely vanished, just gone. No one ever found him, which honestly feels like the most impressive part. In 1695, Every attacked a fleet of ships belonging to the Mughal Emperor Aurangzeb, one of the most powerful rulers on the planet. The flagship of that fleet, the Zheng Yi Sao, was carrying pilgrims returning from Mecca, along with an absolutely obscene amount of gold and silver. Every's crew stormed the ship, overpowered its crew, and made off with what would be the equivalent of roughly $120 million today. The attack caused an international incident. The Mughal emperor was furious and threatened to end all trade with England. The East India Company panicked. The British government put out the very first worldwide manhunt in history. They never caught him. Henry Every disappeared with the money and was never seen again. Some say he retired quietly in the Bahamas. Some say he died broke in England. Nobody actually knows. The man robbed a Mughal emperor, started an international crisis, and then just logged off. Respect. Number 6. Calico Jack. John Rackham, known as Calico Jack for the brightly colored calico clothing he wore, was not actually the scariest pirate on his own ship. That honor went to 2 members of his crew, Anne Bonny and Mary Read, 2 women who disguised themselves as men to sail with him, and by all historical accounts were significantly more terrifying in a fight than the rest of the crew combined. When Calico Jack's ship was finally captured by a British naval vessel in 1720, most of the crew was below deck, drunk, in the middle of the day. When the attack came, the men hid, while Bonny and Read stayed up top fighting. Read was reportedly so furious at her crewmates that she fired her pistol down the hatch, screaming at them to come up and fight like men. They did not come up and fight like men. Calico Jack was hanged shortly after. When Anne Bonny was brought to visit him before his execution, her goodbye was not exactly tender. She reportedly told him she was sorry to see him there, but if he had fought like a man, he needn't have been hanged like a dog. Brutal, and she was right. Number 5. Bartholomew Roberts. Bartholomew Roberts, also known as Black Bart, did not want to be a pirate. He was a respectable merchant sailor who got captured by pirates in 1719 and was essentially forced into the life. Within 6 weeks, he had taken command of the pirate crew. Within a few years, he had captured more ships than any pirate in history, over 400 vessels. The man was just built for this, and he hated that he was built for this. Roberts was famously disciplined. No gambling on his ship, lights out by 8 in the evening, and no women allowed on board. He ran his pirate operation like a very strict and surprisingly organized criminal enterprise. He also dressed impeccably, which, given the circumstances, was an interesting commitment. He terrorized the Atlantic and Caribbean for years and was killed in battle in 1722 when a British naval ship caught him off the coast of Africa. He was found dead at his post, still dressed in his finest clothes. Even at the end, he was better dressed than everyone in the room. Number 4. Blackbeard. Okay, we have to talk about Blackbeard. Real name Edward Teach, Blackbeard is probably the most famous pirate who ever lived, and the reputation was at least 50% deliberate marketing. Before battles, he would weave slow-burning fuses into his enormous black beard and light them so that his face was wreathed in smoke during combat. Imagine sailing along having a perfectly normal Tuesday and then looking up to see a man walking out of a cloud of smoke on his own face with 14 pistols strapped across his chest. You are giving him the ship. You are not fighting this man. But here's the thing, there is almost no record of Blackbeard actually killing anyone outside of battle. The whole thing was theater. He built a personal brand so terrifying that people surrendered without a fight, which meant nobody actually got hurt. He was essentially the world's first influencer. The niche just happened to be maritime piracy and psychological warfare. He was eventually killed in 1718 by a British naval officer named Robert Maynard in a fight so violent that, according to accounts, Blackbeard took 5 musket balls and 14 sword wounds before he finally went down. His head was hung from the bow of Maynard's ship. The legend says his body swam around the ship 3 times before sinking. It did not do that, but the fact that people wanted to believe it did tells you everything about the brand he built. Number 3. François L'Olonnais. François L'Olonnais is where this list stops being fun. A French buccaneer operating in the Caribbean in the 1660s, L'Olonnais was so sadistically violent toward Spanish prisoners that even other pirates found him alarming. That is a sentence that should take a moment to land. He would torture prisoners not for information, but seemingly for the experience of it. He once cut out a man's heart and forced another prisoner to eat it. He destroyed entire towns, executed captives en masse, and operated with a cruelty so extreme that the Spanish colonial authorities offered enormous rewards for his capture, dead or alive, and their soldiers reportedly threw down their weapons and ran when they found out it was L'Olonnais attacking them. His end came in a way that feels almost cosmically fitting. He was captured in Central America, and according to the only historical account of it, was torn apart and eaten by cannibals. Yeah, the ocean did not forget what he did. Number 2. Zheng Yi Sao. Zheng Yi Sao, also known as Qing Shi, commanded the largest pirate fleet in human history and then retired peacefully, negotiated her own terms with the Chinese government, and lived to old age running a gambling house. She was better at this than anyone. After taking control of her late husband's fleet in 1807, she expanded it into an operation of over 1,800 ships and somewhere between 180,000 and 120,000 sailors. For context, the Royal Navy, at the peak of British imperial power, had around 1,000 ships. She had more. Her code of conduct was brutal, and her enforcement was absolute. Defection meant your ears were cut off. Stealing from villages her fleet was supposed to protect meant death. She taxed coastal towns with the efficiency of a government because she essentially was one. China couldn't beat her. Portugal couldn't beat her. Britain couldn't beat her. She eventually negotiated a peace deal entirely on her own terms, kept most of her fortune, and retired. Not captured, not hanged, not sunk. Retired. She is the only person on this list who completely won. Number 1. Klaus Stortebeker. Ever heard of Klaus Stortebeker? Probably not, because history has done him dirty, and that changes today. A German pirate operating in the Baltic and North Seas in the late 1300s, Stortebeker, whose name roughly translates to empty the cup in one gulp, which is exactly the energy you want in a pirate, was the leader of a crew called the Victual Brothers. They originally operated as privateers, supplying a besieged city, but eventually went full pirate and became the most wanted men in Northern Europe. He was finally captured in 1401 and brought to Hamburg for execution, along with his crew of 73 men. According to legend, he struck a deal with the Hamburg authorities. Any man he could walk past after being beheaded would be set free. The executioner took the deal, probably thinking this was a bluff. Stortebeker was beheaded, and then his body stood up and walked. It walked past 11 of his men, before an executioner stuck out his leg and tripped the headless body to the ground. The Hamburg Council, refusing to honor a deal made with a headless man, executed everyone anyway. And that is number 1. Not because of how he lived, but because even without his head, he still almost won.